Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you so much for being here. This is Silver Slayer. What the heck is happening to silver? That is the question and title of today's video, folks. This was written 2 days ago. Usually I try to cover stuff written same day, but I'm pretty sure the narrative is still the same for this guy's oh so relevant question. I'm curious how he's going to answer this, so I think this is going to be a very good video. Make sure you stick around because I'll throw my 2 cents in at the end, and I always love when you participate in the comments. Let me know what you think's going on. If you have any questions or concerns or anything of that nature, also leave that in the comment section. Hopefully by the end of the video, if you think that this channel is worth a subscription and a like, then please do. So he starts off the article with a very strong point, talking about JPMorgan and Motte and Bailey. JPMorgan's manipulation of gold and silver prices is the focus of discussion in the gold community again, as another criminal trial is now underway. This time, the accused is the former head of precious metals trading at the bank. We have discussed the manipulation conspiracy theory here and here. And he shows 2 different articles, I guess he links. And I've covered this for several years now. I just covered the most up-to-date one. If you guys aren't subscribed, if you want to stay up to date with the newest, latest, freshest information, you should, because I cover everything. I'll never miss a beat when it comes to, silver news and all that stuff. I'm always going to cover it, but speaking to this trial, it definitely did spark more fear, uncertainty, doubt. I mean, think of it like this. If you're a new trader or new investor and you look into precious metals and you know that the market is rigged, that the price is manipulated, would that really intrigue you to enter that market? Probably not. And that's sad because there's so many beautiful reasons to invest into silver, at least the physical metal. And this type of stuff pushes people away, even though price manipulation can't exist in this space forever. So he goes on to say central to this trial and the previous one is spoofing. Spoofing is when, and he's going to say it in his own words, but I'll try to explain it better with more context. Spoofing is when a whale or a bank goes on an exchange and places millions of dollars in buy or sell orders and cancels the order before it goes through. And what that does is the volume on that exchange either explodes and the other investors on that exchange see a fake situation happening because they don't know that all those orders are actually going to be canceled, not to go through. So then you're manipulating the other investors' perspective of the market, and then they profit from it. The hardest part is you're allowed to cancel orders, so how can you catch someone with ill intent? JPMorgan is at the face of this. They've gotten caught going back decades and decades, having to pay a $900 million fine, 3 of their employees getting sentenced to prison and 1 for racketeering. This is serious. Now, it also goes beyond JPMorgan. It goes to the Dutch Bank and Merrill Lynch as well. But there's been so many cases, and it used to be a slap on the wrist pre-2020. And I actually remember in 2020 when they announced that they're going to start cracking down on this harder. And they did. Shortly after they came out, JPMorgan had to pay nearly $1 billion instead of the previous $30 million. Plus, people are getting sent to prison now, not just being able to hide behind their desk and get a little slap on the wrist. Now, he goes on to say that Bloomberg describes spoofing as placing orders that are quickly canceled before they can be executed to push precious metals up or down. Unfortunately, many commentators in the gold community use this at the Motte and Bailey fallacy. A Motte and what? And yes, it's a Motte, not a moat, different things. It's named after a medieval fortification. The Motte is strongly defensible, but not a pleasant place to spend a lot of time. The Bailey is a better place, but not so defensible. A fallacy is like a bait and switch. The arguer starts with an uncontroversial statement, in this case that JPMorgan traders were caught entering orders they intended to cancel. And since one can't really dispute this, the arguer moves on to the important proposition. The Bailey is not defensible, but by the tactic of having just sold the Motte, the arguer hopes the Bailey will not need to be defended. The Bailey is that the prices of gold and silver would be far higher, but for manipulation, of course. Spoofing has no long-term effect on prices. And that's the biggest part that I don't think people understand. When they hear precious metals prices are rigged, and most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time, it's an article or a situation that's talking about spoofing. But spoofing is extremely short-lived, can be a couple of days at most. You'll see the price do something extremely wacky, and then it recovers all the time, or shortly after. That's usually a spoofing instance. But anyways, it says it works at all. The whistleblower did not make much money as the trader for JPMorgan. It's because momentarily distorts the price signal, and the trader can trick the other market participants into paying too much or charging too little. That's what I was talking about. It basically is like a false price, or like manipulating the other trader's perspective of what the market's really doing. Now, anyways, goes on to say JPMorgan did spoofing in both directions. You can't get there from here. You can't convict the godfather of murder by proving his grandson stole candy from the store. And you can't argue gold would have been $50,000 decades ago by proving JPMorgan traders entered orders they intended to cancel. And I think he kind of words things a little weird. I don't think, I'll just say this. He could definitely be more direct and explain things for the audience to better understand or comprehend. You're allowed to cancel buy and sell orders. And that's their narrative they're going to push. How can you prove someone is going to cancel that order with ill intent? Because people cancel orders all the time. Silver price suppression. The other hot topic is the commitment of traders report. The conspiracy view holds that banks sell futures to suppress the price. According to this view, the greater the number of futures contracts outstanding, the more the price is suppressed. So in this view, it's notable that the number of open silver contracts is now near a multi-year low. And you can see right here, these are the futures open interest, or the COMEX silver futures open interest. In the conspiracy theorist's mind, this means that silver is ready to launch to much higher prices. This is almost right, but for the wrong reason. And that's something else I wanted to bring to light. I'm going to be covering another article later today that's actually mentioning silver could be on the cusp of a huge explosion. And not just silver, but gold. Now, silver still has a lot more opportunity and potential than gold, given, the high demand that's going to be needed for the next decade and, supply deficit. But regardless, I'm going to be covering something very interesting that does show an opportunity for silver to really take off soon. In reality, open interest responds to the basis. A high and rising basis offers a profit to carry metal. To carry, a bank borrows dollars to buy metal and simultaneously sells a contract. The basis is the profit they can earn in this trade. Basis is basically futures price, spot price quoted as an annualized percentage rate. The interest rate factors into this trade. So, in a changing interest rate environment, one can't just look at the basis. One needs to consider interest as well. Fortunately, we have an indicator which does. The lease rate. Lease rate is basically the basis. Here's our graph of the silver lease rate. So you can see here, for me, this type of stuff really doesn't, it doesn't prove much. I really want to look at more of the entire narrative of price manipulation and also the longevity, or how, the length of how long it's going to last before silver's price naturally starts to shine, which if you watch any of my videos previously, you'll hear I say around the year 2026. That's when I talk about triple digit silver. 2026, that's when the silver shortage will be blatantly obvious. That's when we'll be enough into the green revolution where people, the banks, the entire industrial sector will realize, hey, silver is the most important element and we do not have nearly enough of it. And that's when, in my opinion, they can't sweep silver's undervalued, price under the rug for any longer. So anyways, as we've written in the past, we ignore the period after the economy was slammed with the lockdowns, and hence did not want to take the risk of putting on positions such as carry. And the result was that spreads such as the basis blew out. And it's not even just air travel. There was borders that were cut off and boundaries. And then plus you have Mexico and Peru that accumulate nearly 40%, nearly half of all global silver production that got hit hard from the situation. So he goes on to say that, however, notice the rising trend from the around mid-April last year, or this year at least. A rising lease rate is an indicator of rising scarcity. It costs significantly more to lease silver now than it did in the last several years. Indeed, it costs more now than at any time since the global financial crisis. So understanding gold and silver movements. What does this all mean? Most readers want to know what is likely to happen to the price of gold and silver next. We will address this question, but first let us indulge in a little more chart situation. I'm not even going to say that word. Now, I'm not even going to go over this chart stuff. I just want to go into the meat and potatoes, right? I'm not really a chart person. I don't like breaking down that type of stuff, especially in today's day and age. There's so many other factors that influence the price of silver that a lot of people don't even look at, even more so like speculation. The speculative aspect has been approaching and becoming more effective than ever. And a lot of people just want to look at the numbers and the data, but you got to incorporate what's happening with the economy, people's perspective of the markets, even more so, like I was talking about manipulation earlier, as someone entering the market, seeing it's rigged, that might influence their decision making just off of news they hear. So let's go back into what he was mentioning at the end. So, here's something. So he says, while buyers of this metal could get more aggressive in the future, the current market conditions are not looking bullish for gold. Now, he says, by the way, we do expect them to get more aggressive. This market is characterized by intense selling by those desperate for liquidity and intense buying for those seeking to avoid the ravages of bad policies by government and their central banks. Eventually, the latter will overpower the former. This was not that weak, if we may butcher the classic line. And that is a really good point. Eventually, the latter will overpower the former. That is also what I was talking about. So, let's look. Let's see what he, so this is basically his wraparound, I guess, on this whole thing. So, in silver this week, the Cobasis more closely tracked the price of the dollar. This may be why, after noon on Thursday, the dollar begins to weaken in silver terms. However, the cautionary note is that the Cobasis depleted all of its energy in that move. It dropped 2.25% to 0.8%. This means it was buyers of futures, speculators, who bought silver with the expectation that the price will rocket higher after the low on Thursday. Much of the backwardation in September silver contract dissipated. Now, it doesn't even necessarily have to mean that so immediate. A lot of people just see the price of silver being low. It's a good entry point and they get in. Now, if you're looking just on COMEX terms, possibly more so likely, but I know there's a lot of people also buying the physical metal. I'm going to be covering a story where this lady actually bought 900,000 eagles at like $50 million or something like that. I'm going to be covering that story too. It's insane. You definitely want to stick around because I got some crazy stories to cover, folks. And if you stuck around this long, make sure you subscribe if you want to. If you thought this video deserved a like, then please do. There's also a video attached to this article if you want to check that out as well. Most importantly, though, I cover the most important stuff every single day. If you are subscribed, you're never going to miss a beat in the world of precious metals. I'm going to wrap this video up here. Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.